How are you, everybody? Kevin Iole here. I am joined by one of the most exciting fighters in the UFC right now, Cory Sandhagen. He is going to main event May 3rd. I think it's the 5th main event in a row, or 4 out of 5. It's a lot of main events now racking up for Cory Sandhagen. He's going to be fighting the God of War, Deiveson Figueiredo, at the Wells Fargo Center in Iowa. Cory, welcome. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, I'm doing good, Kevin. How are you?
You are becoming a star here as you go out here. Every time out now, they're putting you on the marquee.
I know. Yeah. I don't know.
That's
This may be my 5th or 6th main event, like you were just saying, and yeah, I mean, I'm honored. I'm a very fortunate guy to be able to do that and to have the UFC trust me to put on good fights and all of that stuff. So, man, I can't believe it. If you would have told me this, 10 years ago when I was making my way up, I wouldn't have believed you. So.
Yeah, no doubt. I want to ask you before we get into the fight. George Foreman passed away last week, and as I was thinking about George, he was such a smart guy, and there was kind of a duality to him. You had the fierce, tough guy in the ring, and then the nice guy, the smart business person outside the ring. And you are obviously one of the more intelligent fighters in the world, and you use your brain as well as your skills, right? And I wonder, is there anything you can take from a guy like George that you saw that that power and that toughness that he had when he fought, but then he had another side of himself? Is there anything you can take from a guy like that and bring into your own life to help make you better?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's kind of a pretty great display of just how committed he was to the sport. I mean, it's when you're kind of wired the way that I feel like some of us are wired, and I know that I'm wired, where you want to intellectualize things, you want things to make sense, you want things organized, you want things like that. It can be really challenging sometimes to find that like fierce competitor person that is doing a combat sport, which typically means like causing a lot of hurt to other people and to yourself and stuff. So um, it takes a lot of commitment to like self-development in order to be a really good martial arts competitor, a really good combat sports competitor. And um, everyone kind of has their own challenges and stuff, and every superpower has its downfalls. But I think that the people that are really committed to the sport and to the self-development piece can turn themselves into what they need to turn themselves into in order to perform really well. And George Foreman's a really good example of that. It's something that I strive to do really well too. So yeah, it's a pretty keen display of his commitment to himself and to the sport.
In boxing, the elite fighters like George, they could go long stretches without a loss, right? Rack up. George fought for the title. He was 37-0 with 34 knockouts. MMA is a different sport, and you lose more in MMA than I mean, I don't, not than you win, but I mean, you lose more often in MMA than you do in boxing, right? And sometimes, does your intellectualism hurt you in that regard, in the sense that do you kind of grind over losses? Like, do you replay them in your mind? Like, and do you wish you had the ability? I'm just going to put that behind me and forget about it, and I'm Cory Sandhagen, go out in the next one.
No, I think that I have a pretty good relationship with failure. I don't take like shame in my mistakes. Like I'm not ashamed of making mistakes in life, and I think that it's kind of a bummer right now that I think that in this day in the world, just maybe it's always been like this, but I only have this small perspective. But where when someone makes a mistake, they really get hounded on for a really long time because typically it's very public, which is kind of a shame because it tells people that they should be afraid of that and they should be ashamed of making the mistakes in life. But not one single person on the entire planet has ever lived without making a bunch of mistakes in their life. So no, when I make a mistake, I just it drives me crazy until I figure out what the mistake was, because sometimes it's hard to dig through what it is. And a lot of the times it's not always a technical thing. Sometimes it's an interpersonal thing, or it's an insecurity thing, or something like that. And those answers don't come too easy sometimes. So but no, I think that I have a really good relationship with failure, and I'm not ashamed to make mistakes. Like I've messed up more times than I feel like I've got it right. So that's just a part of living, and I'm not afraid of it.
So then let me ask, because I think your last two fights, your last two losses, especially, Peter Yan and Umar Nurmagomedov, very close, right? And they could have gone either way. And, there was probably one mistake that you make in each round. And, especially that Umar fight, you're watching it and you're going, he's winning those rounds, but it's just like this, right? And you go, when you look back on that, like, how do you say to yourself, okay, I did pretty well in this fight, even though I lost, and I have to now make this adjustment to change the result?
Yeah, I mean, it's just identifying what it is. But honestly, man, like the ones where I feel like I performed well and I did my best in are the ones that I'm okay with losing. Like they still keep you up at night, but there's always like a proudness in yourself of when you know that you fought well and you did your best, and you didn't punk out, or you didn't quit, or you didn't let any excuse enter into your head in the fight. And I really strive to have just great performances that are closest to what I feel like I'm capable of, even further than that if I can. And
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, losing close fights is definitely not fun at all, but also there's kind of a satisfaction in being like, hey man, you did your best, you worked your hardest through the training camp, and you didn't have it all figured out, but that's not the worst thing in the world. There's ways to lose that are okay, and there's ways to lose that aren't okay, and doing your best and working your hardest and not having it all the way figured out is, in my eyes, an okay way to lose, because it's just a mistake that you made, and it's fixable, you know.
Do you think, like, when we interview fighters like you that are close to the top of the division, of course, we always ask, hey, what do you think of a title shot? Do you want to fight for the championship? Do you think in those terms, like when you're getting ready for a fight, or is it only when the fight is over that you turn your head toward what may be in the future?
No, I mean, I have to do a lot of interviews, so that I typically get asked what I'm going to do or who I want after this. So I definitely have to spend some time thinking about it. But, I think that I kind of like sit there and daydream a decent amount about winning the belt, and, just feeling it and seeing it, and what that will feel like, how, the loved ones in my life that have been there for me through the entire journey of it will feel during that time too. So, I think about it in terms of that, but, the day in, day out training portion is about the next opponent and about myself, and that's really it.
When you look at the division, right? So there was, even when O'Malley got the next title shot, there was no obvious contender, right? Merab is, I don't want to say cleaned out the division, and certainly there's somebody that hasn't fought Merab yet, right? But when you look at it, I mean, he's been dominant pretty much so far, beating a lot of really good fighters. So you're ranked number 4 and you're fighting number 5 Figueiredo. Do you look at that fight as like, hey, I could be next because the two guys immediately above me have already fought him?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been saying that over and over again, man. Like Merab has beaten all of these guys already, and they're pretty decisive wins. They're competitive fights, surely, and you never count anyone out, even if they just lost. And even the O'Malley fight and the Umar fight, those two do something a little bit different, than maybe they win that one. And so yeah, I mean, I'm the only guy that hasn't fought him, and I think that it would be a hell of a fight between the two of us also. And then you take also, if O'Malley beats Merab, the entire world wants to watch me and O'Malley fight. So that would be one for the fans, and it would be on a huge stage fighting for the belt too, which would just compound all of the interest that's already there for that fight. So, I'm going to really, really do my best to completely demolish Figueiredo by every means that I can, and get a finish in this one, and make it like not even a close fight at all, and look like the most impressive fighter in the entire world, so that afterwards I don't have to, I don't have to like be around, like say it without some confidence that I want a title shot
Right.
next. I want to go out and have a performance that earns a title shot. And so that's where I'm setting the bar for this one.
Daveson has had an up and down run. He's had some unbelievable. I think when he's good, he is really, really good. And when he's not good, he kind of like, you just never know. So I'm assuming you're preparing for like what would be the best version of him. But my question would become this, do you think he has a slight advantage over you? And if you do, how do you overcome this? In the mindset, he has won a championship. He has been in that situation a number of times. That's an experience that you have not had yet. You haven't had that opportunity. So to win it. So how do you feel like that advantage that he has of winning the belt and hoisting it will affect your fight, if at all?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things that I like about Figueiredo the most, honestly, is that he's willing to take really tough fights and he's a gamer. Some of his fights, he looks just like a touch behind, but that's kind of everyone, like not everyone goes out and is their absolute best every single night. I'd actually be, I'd be hard pressed to find someone that I feel like does do their best every night, because every time you're dealing with some type of adversity or something, where you're never a full version of yourself. But one of the things that excites me the most about Figueiredo is the fact that he is just a gamer and he's tough and he takes fights against really tough guys. And
Right.
Figueiredo isn't a guy that's kind of playing the whole like, let me figure out a good fight for my next guy and this and that, because I don't know how you feel about that or if you notice it, but I can kind of tell which fighters are trying to carve a path to the top. That's a simple one instead of
Right.
one that has a lot more that's a little bit more gritty. And you can call that dumb all you want, but being dumb has made me go this far. So so there like that's kind of the game inside the game that I don't really like. And Figueiredo doesn't seem to play that game. And that's the reason that I'm really excited to fight him, because I know that a person with that type of mindset is a different type of person.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, let's wrap with this. You have spent a long time working for Dana White, and you know how they match make and how they do things. So now with them getting into boxing, I want to get your take on this. How do you think boxers are going to react to this? Because to me, like, I have covered boxing for 40 years, right? And you see guys on the way up, they fight, I just wrote a column on Callum Walsh, who I think is a very good fighter, but he's fighting guys that were 12 and 175 and what are these terrible records right on the way up. And the MMA, you seem like you're always evenly matched with somebody right a little better than you or a little worse than you. How do you think boxers are going to react to that when all of a sudden every fight they have is, they don't have a breather. They don't have a guy that they can blow out in 2 rounds. They got tough fights. How do you think that's going to go?
Yeah, good question. I don't. I used to be a giant fan of boxing, and I've kind of gotten out of it over the last couple of years. But I would say that if Dana's going to do something like this, just him being a good businessman and a very smart guy, I think that he probably sees some type of hole in that type of system, whether it be like the best guys not fighting the best guys, which to me is always just such a bummer. Like
Yeah.
it was a few years. It was only like a few years ago when they were talking about doing me and Dominic Cruz, which at the time would have been a phenomenal fight. Would have been
Yes.
one that got a lot of the fans going, and they never did that fight. And you look at kind of me and an O'Malley, like in my opinion, it should maybe be O'Malley stepping in there with me in May and not Figueiredo, just because that's what the fans are asking for. So, maybe that fight happens, maybe it doesn't. If you were going to have it, it'd be pretty soon. So hopefully that happens. But it's just such a bummer when that happens, man. And I don't think it's ever really on Dana or the UFC when that happens. Sometimes, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't really know the ins and outs of how all of that stuff works, but in boxing, I know that that's a giant issue, and it just sucks. It just sucks out so much of the fun, because either people are afraid of losing, or people are afraid of losing a star, or their
Right.
reputational damage that they'd get from losing to a certain type of
For all
guys.
the above.
Yeah, or all of the. Yeah, it's usually a combination of all of the above. So, yeah, that's a bummer. And but I would also say that it kind of sounds like, just from what I've heard, that a lot of the boxing promotions that are now, could use a little bit of work. Like the production level, I think, of the UFC is just out of this world. And I think that they do so well because they do everything like production and selling fights and all of that stuff so much better than a lot of the other promotions. So maybe Dana's just excited to be able to do that for a sport that I think Dana is a giant boxing fan, so maybe that's just what he's trying to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they do make a Sandhagen O'Malley fight, sign me up for that one. I will totally be in for that. But first, we got to get through Figueiredo versus Sandhagen. Cory Sandhagen, I appreciate you, brother. Always good to talk to you. I wish you the best of luck May 3rd in Iowa.
Cool. Right on. Thanks a lot, Kevin. I'll talk to you soon.
Be well. Bye.